A luxury cruise on the Nile, a high society murder, and one famously meticulous detective with a magnificent mustache. It sounds like a classic Agatha Christie novel, because it is. But now it's also a video game with a bold twist. Welcome back to GameVault HQ. Today we're reviewing Agatha Christie, Death on the Nile, an adventure game that dares to put Hercule Poirot in the funky 1970s. Yes, bell-bottoms and disco balls included. Does this groovy take on a beloved whodunit sink or swim? Let's find out. Death on the Nile keeps the core premise of Christie's famous murder mystery. A riverboat cruise in Egypt turns deadly when a murder occurs on board. Poirot, the world-famous detective, happens to be on the scene, ready to investigate. This game, however, adds a second playable character and extends the story beyond the original novel. You switch between Poirot and Jane Royce, a young private investigator on a globe-trotting mission. While Poirot interviews suspects on the steamer, Jane is chasing a culprit through London, Majorca, and New York. Their two paths eventually collide at Abu Simbel in Egypt, forcing the pair to team up and solve the case. By introducing Jane, the game tells two parallel mysteries. That not only adds new characters and locations, but it also means that even if you know the book's ending, there are surprises waiting. The story continues after the novel's events with an additional finale, which helps the game feel like a fresh Poirot adventure rather than a straight retelling. The most striking change is the time period. Instead of the 1930s setting of the original story, the game jumps to the 1970s. Poirot goes from Art Deco elegance to flared trousers and disco music. In the opening scene, he's in a London nightclub with flashing lights and mirror balls. Seeing the dignified Belgian detective in a leisure suit at a disco is both funny and charming. The 70s backdrop brings personality, with avocado green decor, rotary phones, vinyl records, and period music. It's a bold change that gives the game its own identity. Some might find the time shift odd, but it does create a distinct vibe. The environments are filled with era-appropriate details like shag carpets and vintage cars. On the downside, the color palette leans heavily into browns and yellows, which can feel drab. The glamour of the original 1930s cruise has been replaced with something earthier. Still, Poirot stays true to his sharp-witted self, and the suspects are the familiar mix of socialites and shady figures, only dressed in 70s fashion. The narrative is engaging and full of mystery. The writing is witty and true to Poirot's persona, with plenty of snarky remarks and interrogations. The game is fully voice-acted, which brings the dialogue to life. Poirot and Jane are well performed, and the supporting cast fits their roles. If you like cozy mysteries, this story will pull you in like a good novel. The pacing is relaxed, giving the game the feel of curling up with a book on a rainy day. So what do you actually do in Agatha Christie Death on the Nile? This is a third-person adventure where you spend most of your time exploring, talking to people, and solving puzzles. You control Poirot or Jane from a behind-the-shoulder perspective, moving around each environment to examine points of interest. Important clues glint in the scenery, and icons show you when areas and conversations are completed. This game is all about observation and deduction. Much of your time is spent interviewing suspects and witnesses. You get a list of dialogue topics to ask each character, and you go through them to hear their alibis and secrets. To keep everything straight, there's the mind map, your detective notebook, visualized. It records clues, facts, and character information you found. More importantly, it lets you link clues together and draw conclusions. When you connect information correctly, new deductions unlock. It's a satisfying way to simulate Poirot's little gray cells at work. Each chapter usually ends with a sequence where you reconstruct the timeline of events. The screen shifts into a stylized wireframe, and you place characters in the right spot doing the right actions. Once completed, the game plays out a recap of how that part of the mystery unfolded. These moments are especially rewarding and capture the spirit of Poirot's dramatic revelations. There are also puzzles and mini-games sprinkled throughout. Some are simple, like piecing together a torn letter, while others are more involved, like decoding a message. A few puzzles feel like filler, though. One early puzzle with the nightclub jukebox had me guessing songs until I found the right one. It worked, but it felt clunky compared to the better detective tasks. When puzzles tie directly into the mystery, they are enjoyable. Finding hidden documents, catching a lie with evidence, piecing together photographs, these moments make you feel like a detective. The game also features a confrontation system, where you accuse a character of lying and present the evidence. It's simple but adds variety, and failure isn't harshly punished. If you present the wrong clue, Poirot comments and you try again. The game has hint and assistance systems, so you can tailor the difficulty. If you want guidance, the game highlights leads and marks items. If you want more challenge, you can turn these off and rely on your own deductions. This flexibility makes the mystery approachable for new players and still satisfying for veteran sleuths. One thing to set expectations. Death on the Nile is linear and methodical. Each chapter is locked to a set of locations, and you need to find all clues and complete all tasks to progress. Sometimes this means revisiting characters to trigger new dialogue, which can slow the pace. But with the hint systems, it never becomes too frustrating. The 1970s setting gives the game its character. Visually, the game is decent, but not spectacular. It uses a stylized art direction rather than realism. Poirot looks sharp with his mustache and posture, and Jane has a fitting detective look. Environments are the highlight, with crafted backdrops ranging from shipboard salons to gritty New York back alleys. The period details in clothing, furniture, posters, and vehicles sell the era. You'll explore the riverboat, a museum, a jazz club, and an Egyptian temple site. The graphics do show some budget limits. Character animations can look stiff and simplistic. Lip sync is basic and gestures are robotic at times. It's not game-breaking, but don't expect modern polish. On the positive side, this style gives the game a storybook feel. Cinematic camera angles and comic book-like panels during some cutscenes add flair to major moments. Performance is stable on PC, and there aren't widespread reports of issues on other platforms. The audio design builds atmosphere. The soundtrack has gentle, 70s-inspired tunes, some jazz and funk that set the mood. On the Karnak cruise ship, you'll hear lounge music and river sounds. Playing as Jane in New York, the music shifts to a grittier vibe with tenser tracks. Sound effects are fine, and the voice acting is strong. Poirot's actor nails the polite yet smug tone, and Jane balances him with a more grounded delivery. Every line of dialogue is voiced, which helps keep you engaged. Microid's Death on the Nile delivers what it promises: a cozy detective adventure that honors Agatha Christie while adding its own flair. This isn't a blockbuster or an action-packed thriller, and it doesn't try to be. Instead, it captures the feel of curling up with a classic mystery novel, then lets you step into the detective's shoes. The dual protagonist approach and 1970s makeover give the tale fresh energy, and solving the mystery can be genuinely rewarding. That said, the game's slow pacing, straightforward mechanics, and occasional filler puzzles might turn off players who aren't already fans of the genre. If you're new to Poirot or expecting the next LA Noire, this adventure may feel too old-fashioned. But for those who enjoy a good whodunit and don't mind a relaxed experience, there's plenty to enjoy. I especially liked the Poirot atmosphere paired with the groovy 1970s twist. The investigation mechanics with the mind map and timeline reconstructions really gave me the sense of doing detective work. Having Jane Royce as a second protagonist and an extended story kept the mystery engaging. The witty writing and full voice acting brought the characters to life, and the assist features made it easy to adjust the difficulty. On the downside, some puzzles felt like busy work and slowed the pace. The animations could be stiff, reminding me this isn't a high-budget production. The structure is very linear, and the 1970s aesthetic, while unique, won't appeal to everyone. After spending hours piecing together clues on the Nile and beyond, I'm giving Agatha Christie Death on the Nile a solid 7 out of 10. It's an enjoyable sleuthing experience best suited for mystery fans and Christie enthusiasts. If you enjoy character-driven puzzle adventures and don't mind some retro charm, you'll likely enjoy the ride. If you liked this review, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment here on GameVault HQ. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Does Poirot work in the 70s for you, or should he stay in the classic era? Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.